Welcome to the Man 360 podcast.
So thanks for joining me today on the Man 360 podcast. I'm really excited to sit down with Kyle Thompson, talk with him about a project that he's working on with the Wonder Project. And let's just get into it. Kyle, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And again, House of David. I want to talk about this project that you're doing and really piqued my interest because we were talking a little bit about, David was in some ways a real knucklehead, but a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
And so just share a little bit about this project that you're working on.
Well, House of David is the first series coming out from the Wonder Project and Amazon MGM, and will be exclusively released on Prime Video, so dropping globally to 240 million subscribers, however many there are in that universe. And it really centers on on young David and a boy who would be king and who has to fight a giant to become one.
Right.
And so I've read the scripts, I haven't seen it, but seen the dailies, and it's really an epic story. And of course, House of David, like we hope for there to be multiple seasons. The idea really in kind of the elevator pitch is imagine Game of Thrones based on 1 Samuel, and so that's really kind of where that starts. Mm-hmm. And so I think the reason David, it's very interesting because House of David's coming out. Sight and Sound Theaters has David, out. They're doing David.
They are.
Yeah, right now.
I didn't know that.
And
that's in Branson.
Is Lancaster in Branson?
Lancaster,
yeah.
Branson.
And then Minnow has Young David that's going on, and then they have a David theatrical that's coming out next year. And so there's just we didn't plan. None of us
providential.
No one got together. Yeah, no one got together and said, "Hey, David's the."
Are you sure? I never talked to John Irwin and asked him, "Did you know something we didn't know?"
But I think there is something that starts to happen in the spirit. That there's something about this story that matters and I'm not saying, "Hey, here's what it is,"
Yeah.
But I believe there's something that God's doing, and there is a story in David that we all are very aware of. But even when I was reading the scripts, I was like stopping and going back and looking at the script. Oh, yeah, there was another daughter. I didn't realize that. Like little things, but then I was sharing with you about visiting this church this past Wednesday and having this confirmation where the pastor's preaching on 1 Samuel 15 and 1 Samuel 18, and I'm like, God, this is not.
Which
a coincidence.
That's one of my favorite, like 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Samuel are like my four favorite books.
That's what when I was a kid, like the picture Bible, that's what I was reading, right? Like it was the battles. And there's something in us, I think, as men, obviously, that it's like, like that. I can, as a kid, what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
And yet there's so much that's just pregnant in that story of who David is and where he starts. We're all very familiar. He's on the backside of the desert, and in a rabbinical tradition is that he was probably not of the same mother as his brothers, and so he was considered,
like a half
brother.
Yeah,
he's the half. Yeah, exactly. So that's why he wasn't even called up when Jesse, brought them forward to Samuel. And so, so I think there's a lot within that we can all kind of sense, like I don't fit in. I'm. Am I worthy? And yet, I think where, of course, we can see where David was on the backside of the desert. He was obviously learning to speak to the Lord and to develop this heart of humility.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you and I were talking about. Yeah. Just what was it about David that was a heart after, God, when he was also a man who murdered one of his friends and slept with his friend's wife and, like things that would be unforgivable in our culture, in a lot of ways.
You'd be like forever socially shamed in every other way. You'd be removed from the pulpit. There would be like excommunication.
There's no chance of
redemption
coming back on it. Yeah, exactly. And yet God spoke that. He's a man after my own heart. And so I think that story for us, it really is good to look back and look into it again. That's a 3,800-year-old story. Why is this coming back in such force right now? Why are we looking? Why does this story of David and Goliath? There is this thing where you've got this little kid basically who takes down the big giant. Like that's inspiring.
Right.
But we also know to get to that point, you don't just show up. There are steps that you have got to know who you are. And that's what you see with David is when he comes in, he's like, this isn't the way I thought we were. Like
Right.
I thought we were brave, and we're we're Israel, and we're God's people.
Everyone else
and,
was cowering.
yeah.
And it was like, even that Goliath would come out and taunt.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't just he would have a little speech or something. It was like he would actually taunt
Yeah.
and say, you guys aren't going to come over here. You're not going to touch me.
Yeah.
And David was like, you uncircumcised Philistine, which is
Right.
like the worst thing to say, right? I mean, he's
Right,
like,
right.
okay, it's not just walking up and like getting in somebody's face. It's like
Yeah.
pushing him in the chest and being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you uncircumcised Philistine.
And he was the little kid doing that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like, David, shut up.
Yeah, whatever you do,
You're going to get the
your
crap
mouth.
kicked out of us.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something, I mean, to realize where he was, and it's funny because you'll see this with kids, right?
Mhm.
Where they're like, your own kids.
Right.
Like, Dad, I thought this is what we are. That person's
Like,
homeless. Are we supposed to help them? Well, yeah, but
But
it's like,
but they're liars and they just
Yeah.
have a bunch of money. They make $70,000 a year
Yeah.
panhandling, and it's like, right.
we get challenged, and that was the young,
Yeah.
naive in some sense, but based on what he believed and what he obviously was taught.
Right.
Like, he was taught this stuff that, hey, this is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We have
Yep.
nothing to fear. We can stand up to anybody.
Right.
And how are you, like, I think he was incensed not only by that, but also by, this isn't who we are.
Right.
And anyway, so it's been fun kind of going back and realizing that, and just little parts of the story, that I encourage you to go read it again. But there was also one little thing I'll mention that was interesting, where he's called into Saul's palace, into the palace, right?
Yep.
To play for Saul. And there's a person who says, I know of this man,
Yeah.
and he's a warrior. And that's the interesting thing. This is right after Samuel has anointed him. So
Mhm.
you have to know that person, so there was a person who saw that this kid got anointed.
Yeah.
And there was never an opportunity for him to be a warrior, but yet this person called it.
So reputation of that.
He already had a reputation, and obviously there was something that God had put on him. And when I read that, it was like, there are people that you're going to come into contact with, and then on the flip side, there are things I need to see David's. Because
Mhm.
what if I'm the person that is in the position with Saul,
Right.
that I'm there in the palace and I'm trying to figure out what's my calling?
Yeah.
And the opportunity comes for me to get David in. And kind of an interesting segue.
That's
One
really
of
good.
one of the things that in the industry that I work in, I work with John Irwin. John Irwin is the founder of the Wonder Project.
Yeah.
And early on, John is just doing amazing things. And there was a film project he went on that he didn't call me about, and I was like a little offended, like, how you didn't call me? Like, what's up? Like, I've been with you since the beginning. What's
Right.
up? And I kind of not wrote him off, but I was like kind of frustrated. And I felt the Lord say one day, did I call you to do be a part of what he's doing or what I'm
Right,
doing? And I was
right.
like, oh, okay. And it was interesting because it was what I really sensed the Lord say was, I've called him to a particular work.
Yeah.
And he's going to do what he's going to do.
Yep.
He's going to follow me or not follow me, but that's his business. That's his story.
Yeah.
What you're called to do is, when I point you to him, you do everything you can to fulfill what I want
Right.
for his life. Because
Right.
it's not about your career and not about his career. It's about what I want. I'm the king,
Mhm.
and so it was a yes, sir moment.
Yeah, that's really good, because I think sometimes we do too in our work relationships. We can equate those with like the perfect harmony of what whoever you're working for or working with, the people you're working
Yeah.
with, to equate that with what God's calling you to do, because he can be calling you to do
Yeah.
something that's more specific just to your calling and what you're doing, and not necessarily just to what someone else in that relationship. I
Yeah.
think David's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Just with what God really had called him to do,
Yeah.
and that God had has an ultimate plan for all of us. And again, it's about God's will. It's not about
Yeah.
our career.
Well,
I
and
think
even
it's a good line.
yeah, yes, exactly. Well, and even the David story, it's easy to say, okay, where do I see myself in David's story?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, where are the Davids that we're supposed to be, helping and speaking into and
Yeah.
coming alongside of
Yeah.
and encouraging, and it could be your boss.
Yeah.
He could be the most ungodly person, or she could be the most unrighteous person, and God has that. There's a reason, especially for leaders, that they're in boss positions.
Do you pivot from like a David to a Nathan?
To a Nathan.
At some point, is that
like
you're a David,
ready.
and then you're like, "Okay, listen, just letting you know, I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm just coming from the Lord.
But
it's
like, at what level am I the armor bearer for my boss?
Yeah.
And encouraging them, because I've been the boss and I've been the guy that's worked for the boss, and I know sitting in the boss position that I've got to look like I got everything together. But if someone gives me a word of encouragement, like, hey, you're not, because that's one of the loneliest positions is when you're the boss or you're the pastor, or like, because you got to have it all together, and you don't have it all together, So anyway,
well,
I
was going to ask you about just that pivot and that transition from what you were doing in your own with Catalyst, and now working for someone in that way. I mean, that's a big deal. Like, I have a friend who is went from church ministry to doing his own thing. And he told me, he's like, I never want to work for anybody else ever again if I can help it.
Yeah.
So what was that emotionally, and
It was hard.
in David terms? What was that like?
Yeah.
Like,
Business partner and I started a company in 2014, and have been going for 10 years, and
so not like 1 year, but
no, we've been going
a long
and we've
time.
got multiple things. I mean,
Churches,
church marketing. We do a ton with movies, and we have a streaming company, and we have a missions organization, and 10 employees, and it's like we're blowing and going. We've got big plans. We've got incredible things that are coming into this next year.
Yep.
But I had this tension that had been happening on the movie side, and I really was making this decision. Lord, what is it that you want me to do?
Yeah.
Do I abdicate all these years of experience on the movie side and just focus on the technology?
Right.
Because this is a God thing when he brought the technology in the middle of COVID, where no movies are going into theaters and no mission trips are happening. We were leading mission trips. We were able to buy a streaming company that delivered, Sunday morning services for churches. Like the busiest time that there ever was streaming for churches. We were able to, pay for it. That's the miracle,
exactly.
And because we didn't have any income, So I thought maybe this is where God's leading me. I spent the last 4 years working on it, and then out of the blue got a call just to help. It was more of a thing. It was just to help, and then in the middle of kind of helping, it kind of start and stop, and that was because Wonder had so many other things that were going on, and it's a very broad. I mean, there's only certain things that have been announced, but it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And you don't get a deal, with Amazon MGM and Amazon Prime, which are totally two different entities.
Right.
By just having one thing on the docket.
Right.
So I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that's part of that, and they're an incredible, talented group of people that had been brought on, and so I'm kind of like, I don't know how I can help you guys, but really it was that faith it touches everything that they're a part of.
Yeah.
It's a values focus. Like, these are the projects we're talking about, things that you can believe in, entertainment, but it's entertainment that inspires you to want and to be more, and to expect more, and to do more with your life. And so, it's like, that's inspiring, but I got this thing going over here. And I really felt like the Lord was like, you need to be aggressively asking. And I'm like, aggressively asking what?
Interesting.
And so I reached out to John, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a little odd, but I just felt like I needed to reach out and kind of see what help you needed. Like, what do you really need to see happen? And he's like, well, it'd be incredible to have you a part of it, but listen, we need someone full time. And I was like, okay, I guess that's it. Because I was like, I'll put this project together. And
for you to say that, I mean, and I'm just saying that too, because I don't know you super well.
Yeah.
But I mean, that says a lot to your character to not be like, because there can be a lot of that just male, like, I build things. I know you're an entrepreneur, not just what, because it's like that entrepreneurial mind can really be hard to actually work for someone else when you have the ability to build something yourself. And I just really commend you for that, because I don't, like, for me, I don't know if for Yolanda and I, like, we want to do CTN for the rest of our lives, and we don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
And it was like, if God was like, hey, I don't want you to do that, and I want you to go work for someone, again, I mean, I would really I'm just in full transparency, like, I would have to have it out with God. I'd go to the condo and have some time, be like, Lord, I don't know, like, are you sure this isn't a get thee behind me Satan moment? Am I supposed to not? But I just really appreciated about that, because that's a big deal. It really is
Well,
a big deal.
Of all my many varied gifts and talents, humility is by far my greatest.
Is it? Well, that's good. You sing "I exalt me" in the morning before you worship
No,
yourself.
No, and that's one of a callback to one of our
Yeah.
old bosses. It was a joke of just like humility. No, I
Who won the
don't.
humility award?
I will say, humble yourself, or the
Yeah.
added scripture there is, or you will be humbled.
Well,
and I have been.
And which, I always read whatever the day is, I read that
Yeah.
proverb for the day. And it's so funny how many times in Proverbs it talks about don't be stiff-necked,
Oh yeah.
correction. I mean, correction, be corrected, be
Yeah.
corrected. Like if you're a fool, you don't like correction, you
Yeah.
love not just you'll accept correction, but you love correction.
Yeah, yeah.
If you really want to be.
Here's the test. As a married man,
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons your wife is in your life. It is the hardest thing to take correction from your wife.
And because she's the president of the Christian Television Network
On top of all
and
that.
boss of my
Yeah.
she can fire me if she
Yeah.
wants to.
But I
There's
mean,
a whole nother
think,
level, but
think
it is
about
totally true.
as men, like
Yeah.
what's the clarity that Jesus said? He said, when Paul was explaining, like,
Yeah.
what is it for us as men? And it really is the take up your cross and
Yeah.
follow me.
It is.
Because what did Jesus do? He died for his
A
bride.
servant. Yep.
And that death was a death to he's God,
Right.
right? It wasn't just that he
Right.
went to the cross; it was the very fact that he
Right.
poured himself into humanity,
Correct.
and shed himself of his
Yeah.
of his God, his godness. He had to, because he had to be purely man when
Yeah.
he came in. So that correlation for us as
Yeah.
men, like if you want humility, then be a really, really servant husband.
Yeah.
And that's not easy, because the moment you say that, then
Right.
your wife's going to give you an opportunity.
Right.
It's guaranteed.
No, I love it because I've always said this. I feel like wives, especially guys that are in ministry or these like any kind of ministry roles, are going to be a perfect reflection of how their husbands treat
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think we need to look at that
Yeah.
and really look at our wives and say, if she's acting a certain way, it's not like, well, why isn't she acting? Well, what are we doing to pour into?
Yeah.
And I've always tried to be, even with Yolanda and I, try to be a person that helps encourage her dreams, and
Yeah.
ask her, every once in a while, like, what's a dream that you have?
Yeah.
Myself, I had, Yolanda was like, she really said that she wanted to play the guitar, which kind of came out of left field a few years ago. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go buy her a guitar.
Yeah.
And it was like, just those things like
And
that.
then you lay on
I
the
feel-
couch and you're like, can you strum?
Yeah,
for
I'm like,
me?
could you strum
Yeah,
me
yeah.
like David strummed like this, baby? Could you strum like this? And like play me a little something. But yeah, I just really feel like it's important, and I think you're really illustrating that. And even for Jesus, before he went to the cross,
Yeah.
one of my favorite scriptures is like, my version, God, if we can do this any other way, I'm
Right.
totally down.
Yeah.
Like if we can do all this and
Yeah.
I don't have to die. And
Yeah.
just realizing again that humanness of how much
Yeah.
Jesus was a human as he was God, and God as he was human.
Mhm.
So Kyle, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Good to
it.
be here.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.